So with 9/11 and 20 years passing since that tragedy, do you think today the world is considerably more safe, more secure versus terrorist threats than we were back then?
I think in some ways, yes. Certainly true that we have developed much more comprehensive counter-terrorist infrastructure than we had 20 years ago. In other words, for better or for worse, the equivalents of the FBI, the CIA, special forces are able to do far more to focus on terrorism and counter-terrorism. And that has played a significant role in stopping terrorist threats happening, and that also includes the deployment of drones and artificial intelligence and all this kind of stuff. The thing that hasn't dramatically changed over the last 20 years is there are still a very uncomfortable number of very fragile conflict-affected states. And there are very striking numbers of people who are still prepared to endorse a jihadist ideology, and the victory in Afghanistan of the Taliban over the last few weeks will have produced a huge morale boost to jihadists around the world, from Sahel right the way across, who will see this, as they did indeed the ISIS victories in Syria and Iraq, as a sign that they're on their way back.
Certainly, after al-Qaeda is massively degraded, the leadership is decapitated. In the case of bin Laden, quite directly. Hard to argue for an American domestic audience that Afghanistan is an existential threat or close to it. But do you think that the Americans face knock-on impact from Afghanistan itself?
Well, look, the problem in the US debate is that it's just all black and white. Either this is the most important threat in the world, or it's not a threat at all. The answer, of course, is it's somewhere in between, and has always been, right? It was never as important as American politicians pretended between 2001 and 2010, but it's certainly much more important than American foreign policy people are acknowledging today. The answer in very blunt terms is, of course it does. We've just seen 13 American servicemen killed in Kabul by the Islamic State Khorasan in Afghanistan. That is an extremely brutal international terrorist group operating freely from within Afghan territory and killing American servicemen. So whatever we think about Afghanistan, nobody should be concluding that there are no terrorist threats coming from that, particularly this week. Secondly, what happens when the United States withdraws? Is the United States going to have more capacity to control and monitor the emergence of terrorists in Afghanistan after they've left than when they were there? Certainly not. And who's going to fill that vacuum? But the United States is basically at the moment holding off all support from the Taliban. China, Russia, Pakistan are going to turn up and say, okay, we'll step into that void and we'll begin to provide the support. And one of the naiveties of this whole thing is the idea that somehow if America leaves, this is all going to be just an internal issue inside Afghanistan. Of course it isn't. You've created a vacuum into which Iran, Pakistan, and others will flow. So in terms of any of the things that we've cared about for the last 50 years, regional stability, terrorism, our humanitarian obligation towards the Afghan people, the credibility of the United States and its allies, this is a very, very damaging moment.